if Kelly and I weren't on the same page on that, we wouldn't have made the deal happen, because it wouldn't have accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and it probably wouldn't accomplish what she wanted.
Welcome to the Sinclair podcast, where we share real-world experiences, wisdom, and the honest struggles of entrepreneurs to help you navigate and scale your business with confidence.
Aaron, absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming on today. Thanks for the time. You and I met literally, a month ago?
Yeah, maybe a month ago. 6 weeks, maybe.
Our mutual friend, Larry Anderson.
Yeah.
I mean, Larry's talked about you for a long time.
Yeah.
And, he's had the pleasure of working with you guys, but he's just always spoken so highly. And he's like, you got to meet him. So it worked out great.
I will have to make sure I send that check to Larry. I mean, I'll thank Larry. Thank Larry, yeah.
Tell him to give it to me after.
Yeah.
But you and I sat down for breakfast, which was probably going to be an hour, and I think it turned into 2.5 hours.
Well, first of all, it took us 3 different places to find a breakfast.
That's right.
I think we went around town. Who's open? Why are people not open right now?
It was strange before the holidays.
It was the wrong day of the week, I think, or something.
But it was one of those just natural, we could have talked for another 4 hours.
Absolutely.
So I really enjoyed the conversation, get to know, more about you and your story. And I think that's, one of the many reasons why I'm excited to have you on here to talk about your story, because it's unique, it's different, it's not a normal sort of path to the entrepreneur road. So why don't we start with take me to a little bit about growing up. We're born and raised for you.
Born and raised in St. Catharines. No, that's not true. I lie.
He's lying already. We can't lie on this episode.
I'm lying already. I was raised in St. Catharines, but I was not. I was born in Smiths Falls.
Okay.
So, but most of my earliest memories go back to St. Catharines. I think I was probably 6 years old or so when my parents, I believe it was, I don't know, something like that. Maybe 4. I don't really remember.
Early days.
Yeah, early days
so,
for sure.
Siblings, what'd your parents do?
Two younger siblings. And my parents my mom was pretty much stay-at-home mom, but she always had some part-time job kind of on the side. So for years she did daycare, and then in-home daycare, and then she would have other types of jobs throughout the years. As we got older, she went and worked at a call center for a long time. My dad worked for the Ministry of Health for the province for a long time. And so he was, the story I get is that he was an ambulance driver. Now, I don't know that that's the same now. I think you have paramedics now, but I think it was maybe a little different back then.
Didn't have to do the work. You just
I'm
you stayed in the front of the ambulance.
You might have got involved and maybe just didn't have the same qualifications. I don't really know, but he was in healthcare for a long time. And so so he ended up doing management for a long time with the government, and then he moved on. He was actually in Haldeman County for a while running that. That's where he finished his career for the most part.
On.
So I've been in St. Catharines as long as I can remember, and we moved once when I was young, grade 1, but after that I grew up in pretty much the same house in St. Catharines and walked to school every day, all through, all 13 years of school.
That's cool.
So really didn't move around much at all. So, and then I went to Niagara College, which was
we connected on. We
well.
probably almost crossed paths at some point.
Probably.
When did you start school at Niagara?
Would have been 2000.
Yeah.
2000 to 2003 or 4.
We probably crossed paths at a bar at some point along the way. So
yeah, probably. Yeah.
What'd you take at Niagara?
Electronics technology. So the 3-year with a co-op. So.
What got you interested in that field?
I went to Governor Simcoe High School. We had a tech program, electronics, and it was fantastic. I loved it. And so I was just blessed to be able to be a school that had that. I don't know how common it was in the 90s, but Simcoe had a really good program. The professor at the time that we had, or the teacher, I guess, was pretty engaging. 2 courses I took in high school, I remember we had a project. You had to design your own project and build it. And so I think back and I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool what I was doing, although I didn't think much of it at the time. The one year I built a little car that actually followed a light. So I could have a flashlight and you turn the car on, and wherever you had the flashlight, it would drive along and towards the light. And so
that's cool.
But it wasn't here's the project, build it. It was figure out a project, research it, and design it. And so I was able to design the circuit board to actually do this. And Then the other project I did was they had a laser that actually was modulated by a microphone. And so I thought, well, that's neat because probably not a lot of schools had this thing. If I do my project around that, what could I do? So I built an amplifier and I put it on the other side of the room, and we had a couple mirrors. And so I'd stand there and I'd talk into the laser, and it would modulate that, and the signal would go across the laser, basically like early fiber optics without the fiber, and it would bounce across the room, and then my amplifier would take that and interpret it, and out it came. So
Yeah, that's complex.
Yeah, it was
you
fun.
lost me like a minute ago, like the how, but
it was a really fun
that's
project.
a really cool program.
But I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then someone came in from one of the colleges, not Niagara, a different college, and they were talking about their electronics program, and I was like, well, I like these courses, and they do that, so let me look into that. So that's how I ended up in that program.
Right on.
Yeah.
So coming out of school, what did you think you were going to do, and like what was the job market like?
I didn't know what I was going to do.
it?
I just knew what I liked, so I went to school for that, and we were having fun, but I didn't think a lot about the job market, honestly. Like I was just kind of following the path of what I liked. And then I would say my first co-op I did for Hoco on Clifton Hill.
Yeah.
And I was an arcade technician down there. And big company, great company. I met my wife actually there.
Added bonus.
Yeah, she was
awesome.
working in the finance or the cash office there, but she'd pick up extra shifts doing like the prize booth in the arcade, and we were the technicians, so that's how we ended up meeting.
So you weren't working the whole time. You were
busy
talking to the staff.
Yeah. She was.
That's awesome.
She actually intimidated me because she was a year older, and she had a different uniform because she was from the office, and I was like, this is an office woman. Like, I don't know who this is, right? So, and we're just the technicians walking around. Anyways, the rest is history on that one. But then I went back to, I didn't love the job. It was a little bit, not enough electronics and a little bit too, unjamming coins and stuff like that from machines. Yeah. But it was cool to work around the arcades. So, which I actually... How many years ago was that? That was probably 2003. And I just this fall built from scratch, 100%, my own full-size arcade machine. I've got it in my house right now. It's awesome.
So you're still like able to go and do the craft.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's like a total retro arcade.
I need a picture of that for after.
Yeah, I'll send you
after.
That's awesome. It's amazing. I love it.
Man, that's really cool.
It's full-size, got all the retro games on it. It's awesome. But
love that.
Yeah, so after that, I needed another co-op. So then I ended up at Kraun as a laborer, which wasn't really in line with my program, but they were like, you have enough co-op hours because you stuck around longer at the last job, so go ahead and do that. That's fine. You've already met your hours. So I went as a laborer for, 4, 5, 6 months.
Okay.
And enjoyed it and thought, okay, this is hands-on, this is engaging, this is something, and I do have to start thinking about a job because we're almost done now. So went back for one more semester at Niagara, and then came out and said to Kraun, "Do you got a spot?" And they took me back. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Tell me, how big was the company at this time? How many staff?
So I don't know for sure. I believe we were something. At one point, someone said there's about 18 of us.
Okay.
Something like that. So not tiny, but not huge.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 people, something like that. So. The business had been around at that time for about 7 or 8 years. And my employee number was 62. So, not 62 people there, but that was just, where I landed kind of in that progression. So
what kept you there, and what did you, as the company sort of progressed and grew along the way? Yeah.
So I was always looking for, so what's the next thing? What can I do with this, right? So I like this job. I'm having fun. I'm making money now. I'm not in school just trying to, I learned a lot about, this is a different topic maybe, but I learned a lot about money in school when I was like, I've got this part-time job, and how do I pay for, my tuition and my books? And my friend would be like, what are you doing? You're not paying attention in class. I'm like, no, I'm doing the math. Like, I know what my paycheck is this week, and I know I got to pay this tuition.
And you're probably the only student doing that at that time.
I probably was. And I look back and I was like, man, I learned a lot of that. But anyways, I digress. But Yeah, no, I started working for Kraun. It was fun. It was a good company, and I was learning the trade. And so when I came back, I started my apprenticeship. And now that's a 5-year, for electrical, that's a 5-year, 9,000 hours, 3 additional rounds of school to do, before you can be eligible to write your test to become a licensed electrician.
Wow, huge commitment.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to stick with this. I'm in it now. Went back to trade school. At 3 different times during your apprenticeship over those 5 years, you go to trade school. It's changing now, but it used to be an 8-week stint and then 2 10-week stints.
Was that local, or were you traveling somewhere for that?
At the time, that was at Mohawk.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
Niagara
not too bad,
College
up
is
the
actually
highway.
doing it now, but they didn't have it at the time.
Gotcha.
So it was Mohawk. So I went to school. What was interesting about there was some new stuff there, but because of my background in the technology program at Niagara, trade school was pretty straightforward for me because I had done most of that learning already.
Yeah.
This was like review level for me. There was some new stuff, but and the practical part I hadn't done before with electrical installations, but you're learning that, day to day throughout the job. So
Along the way, as you're growing within the company's growing.
yeah.
When did you identify maybe some comments like, if this was my company, I'd do this different, or like, when did those entrepreneurial spirit things start happening for you?
So I look back and I'm like, I've probably always had that, but I didn't have the language or the self-awareness to recognize that's actually what I wanted to do.
Sure.
But I always felt like I can do this better. I can do that better. And I remember talking to my boss one time and saying, do you ever think about like a vision or a mission for the company? And at the time it was like, and I have a ton of respect for my former boss, but at the time it was like, I don't know, we got work to do here. So, and it was like,
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I got to learn, like, do those things actually translate into reality in business? So,
what were you consuming though? Like, where did you get that? Because that's just not like no one else that you're working with is probably having that conversation.
Yeah.
Was it books? Was it material? Was there inspirational leaders in your life?
At first it wasn't. I don't know. I think it just came naturally somehow, some way. The point where it changed was once I got licensed, I started running some small work, and we were on a project. We were doing a big job at the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge in Queenston. And so it was a tough job. And the guy that was running it, I was learning under him how to be a foreman or site supervisor at the time. And he left to go start a new job, and they kind of left me there to deal with deficiencies. And it wasn't the greatest job we had, and there was a big deficiency list, and it was a very complicated job. And I was like, I got this list,
and that's like job's done, but you have to go back
job's
and fix
done,
all these
and here's
things.
all these things that we don't think you did or that, and it's common, it's normal, but this one was abnormally large. And so I remember thinking, okay, well, I've got to have a way to organize this thing, and I'm going to do it on a spreadsheet, right? And so I built a spreadsheet, and I remember someone saying to me once, "Oh, they're going to like you in the office because you know how to use spreadsheets." And I was like, doesn't everybody know how to use spreadsheets? Like, I have
assumption, slightly naive.
Exactly.
But.
So, but not long after that, they were looking for an estimating position in the office. And so my boss came to me and he said, I want to meet with you, and sure, come on out to the job. And I was actually working at Niagara College at the time. We were doing a project there. And he came out and he said, we're looking for a new estimator. Would that be something you'd consider? And I thought, I don't really know what you do, but that sounds fun. Why wouldn't I go for it? Let's do it. And so from there, I went into the office. This was 2010 now. And so I've been in the field for about 7 years or so. And within months, I was like, I'm hooked. This is what I love, the business side of this business.
Sure.
Right? I was like...
You weren't going back to the field at that point.
I wasn't going back to the field. And it wasn't because I didn't respect it or didn't love it, but I was like, oh, this just aligns with the way I think. This is exactly me. And I probably never recognized it until then. That was the first time I recognized it.
It's great.
Yeah. So within about a year from there, I was like, now I need to learn more. I better upskill myself. So I started taking a university degree in business after that.
How hard was that to manage that? And at this time, did you have kids yet at this point or no?
Yep. So we did. We got married 2005, and we had our first son in 2007. And 2011, yeah, I actually had 2 kids at the time. So it was like,
How was that
they
job
were
going?
young. Yeah, it was challenging. And so I did it through Athabasca, and that's a big challenge because it has the opportunity, because back then there was not a whole lot of online learning or remote learning.
Yeah.
And it's self-driven. Like you either do it or you don't. You sign up for a course, they give you 6 months, you finish it or you don't. That's your choice, right? Nobody's checking in on you.
They've got your money. They don't really care at that point.
They're not coming after you. So you're either doing it or you're not, right? So it had to have that maturity. Well, I really wanted to learn. And my very first course was an introduction to management or an introduction to business type course. And I loved it. And I think I still have the textbook because I'm like, I never
awesome.
opened it, but I love this course. I'm learning stuff. So it was a huge challenge. My wife was working part-time at the time. Kids were little, full-time job, trying to really put my best foot forward at the job. And it was a challenge, but I just went at it slowly. One of the things I read said, look, if you ever want to earn a degree as an adult, those years are going to pass anyways. So you're going to get to the other side of them and go, boy, I wish I had started it because I could have made some sort of progress, right? So that was the mentality. I think I read that and thought, that's good advice. Like, I'm going to go down that road.
Progress.
Yeah, just make progress. So I've always been someone who wants to accomplish whatever I'm capable of accomplishing, right? So I think everybody's got a certain amount of potential, and shame on us if we don't, go for it, while still trying to find balance in life, right? You got to make sure that you don't sometimes get too laser focused on one thing. But for me, it was like, I think I could really do something here and I really enjoy it. So why not?
Yeah.
So I did that it took me, sometimes I think, am I embarrassed about this? I don't really think so, but it took me 11 years to do a 3-year
I'd say
degree.
your secret's safe with me, but it's not at all. It's out to the world. How long? 6 years?
11.
11 years.
Yeah. So I probably got 75% of the degree done in the first 4 years.
Yeah.
And then now the kids are old. Now I got 3 kids and they're older and they're starting to do things and work's getting heavier. And it's like, every single evening, do I want to do this? So I'm trying to schedule it. So I just slowed down. I just went at the pace that I had to do, and is what it is. The really cool thing about it was every course I took, I was able to, if it had a project, I was doing it on Kraun. I remember a project where I was like, John was the founder and the original owner of Kraun, and John, I'm doing this on the company. Like, I got an interview. I got this school project I got to do, or other things where I'd say, I'm gonna do this on the company. I actually think we need to do this anyways. This is a project it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to do. And so I would do it, and I would say, here, look, I did this. Can this help the company? Or I think it can help the company in this way, or it can help me in my role this way. So it was very, very practical learning in that sense. So going slow allowed me to apply, a vast majority of the stuff that I was learning.
Yeah, I mean, that's good for you because everything you're doing has this practicality to it. It's good for your career because you're developing and learning.
Yeah.
And it's good for the company too, right?
Yeah,
You're bringing all these new ideas and probably stuff that had never been imagined.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so it was fun. It was good.
That's incredible. Yeah. So at what point did you either have the opportunity or say, like, I need to own something?
So...
And not for the sake of owning, just there was that piece in you that said,
I want to do it.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there, they brought me onto the leadership team, and I was the first non-family member on the leadership team. It was John, Kevin Kelly, and her husband Chris that was kind of running it. So they brought me into that room, and now I got kind of exposed to that next level of like, I get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, the behind the curtain stuff where it's like, this isn't as glorious as sometimes people have to make.
What am I signing up for? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it also represented a big challenge for me, right? I was like, this is exciting. These are problems to solve. Like, I love this. This is super fun. And then 2015, a conversation was starting about John's transition, eventually retiring from the business. And so that's probably when the wheels started to turn, where I'm like, where should I take my career at this point? Should I keep going with Kraun? How do I go to the next level?
Was the thought of start your own?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, at one point there was, for sure. I thought I'd start my own, but I think part of it was I had grown up and the business had grown, a fair amount at that point, and I liked the size we were, because we were big enough now to do some. It wasn't just a grind, right? We were we were working hard, but we were big enough now to try some bigger company stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I start on my own again, then you really got to start from scratch, right? Which I could have done and thought about it, but not too long. But what I thought, okay, well, let me try here first, right? And if I got a lot of ideas, and they've been really gracious to me and listening to me, accepting these ideas, but maybe I should, put my money where my mouth is. And so I did approach John and Kelly at the time. I sent them a letter, and I said, look, I'm looking for the next step in my career. And John, I know you're looking towards retirement at some point. I'm interested. I'm interested in buying into this company. Do you want to talk? And I wrote the letter and I sent it, and they came back a week or two later, and they were like, yep, let's talk.
Cool.
And I was like, okay, all right. What have I asked for here? Is this?
What am I getting myself into?
What am I getting myself into? So
before we go forward on that, what was the dynamics of getting, once you got sort of behind the curtain of the family business? Because it's the same and different, and you can share as much or little as you like. But what were let me position this to not put you on the spot. Yeah. What were one or two of the biggest takeaways and lessons learned that you were able to watch and learn?
So they're a great family. But it's family business. And so you've got difference of opinions, but then you've got that, is this the boss talking, or is this dad talking?
Yeah.
Is this my son or my daughter talking, or is this the estimator or the HR talking kind of thing?
Yeah.
And so you got to watch some of that, where from my position, I could offer an insight without the family connection, for the best I knew how at the time. So I think I learned a lot about people interaction and how you have to run a team in order to make forward progress despite different opinions. Because there was very different opinions in the room all the time.
Which you want on a leadership team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you want, but you have to, but if you're not careful, you can quickly put a wedge between those relationships, and you kind of can't move forward on things, right? And what happens when you have really opposing opinions, and someone's got to make a call on something? So I learned a lot about how to work on a leadership team, where I knew there was just different personalities and in different positions on big issues, like things that if we get the decision wrong, the company's in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So
incredible experience.
Yeah. So that was very good. Yeah. I learned a lot there for sure.
So they're interested. You're buying in.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more.
So I forget what there's probably an 18-month period where we were figuring out what that looked like. And 2018, I believe it was May, is when we finally closed the deal. So Kelly and I went 50-50 in, and we said, we can do this. We're going to figure this out. We need to sort out. We had at that point who was going to be in what role in the company and how we were going to work together. Because there's, as you know, there's business partners, there's ownership, and then there's your job, right? And they're not one and the same. And so starting right from day one, I was like, we need to make sure we understand what our roles are outside of being owners of the company, right? You have a responsibility, I have a responsibility, and we've got to do our best to try and honor that, because if we don't, we're going to get all hung up, especially if it's a 50-50. You know, how else do you make decisions? You got to try really hard not to get in that position. So we, from day one, we had agreed upon that, and we just started going. And the other thing is, we agreed that we're going to try and grow this thing and make it our own. Like it's a nice business right now. It's had its ups and downs, but we are going to try and take it to the next level.
Was that a non-negotiable for you going in? You needed full buy-in that the team was going to support that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. If Kelly and I weren't on the same page on that, we wouldn't have made the deal happen, because it wouldn't have accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and it probably wouldn't accomplish what she wanted to accomplish.
For sure.
We couldn't go in there if
would
we
be
had
aligned.
Yeah, totally opposite positions on what to do with the company after this. But yeah, no, it was non-negotiable. We're going to see what we can do, and we're going to have some fun with it. So
that's awesome.
yeah, we agree on more things than we disagree on, right? So sometimes our approach might be a little bit different, and for better or worse. But yeah, that was really important for us.
It's awesome. 7 years later, you guys have built something. I mean, anyone, or I will say most people in Niagara, recognize the brand, the name.
Yep.
They see the trucks on the road. What were some of the things, like if you can identify one or two things that you guys did to really help scale and like become an industry leader and a leading company and a very sizable company in Niagara?
Yeah. So step one in, I'm going to say 2019, I was trying to do some strategic planning, and my wife, who I don't think she was working for us yet at the time, she does now, said, have you ever thought about hiring someone else outside the company to help? And I was like, that's not a bad idea. And so I reached out to someone. I said, can you guys help us with this? And yeah, of course we can. And here's the price. And okay, that's a bigger number than I like to.
What was the service? Sorry, that you were bringing on. This
we actually went through BDC.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so they're a great resource, especially in this area for entrepreneurs and small businesses.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, Paul Goodwin, they have a great team.
Yeah, they
he's
have
awesome.
a great team. Yeah, so that we use them for this consulting, and so they came in and helped us build out a strategic plan and really listened to us of what we wanted to accomplish and helped us kind of lay that out. It was a 3-year plan. I think it was hot off the press around the very end of 2019. And so we've been about a year and a half into this company, and we got a 3-year plan, and everything's going to go smooth from here, right?
Yeah.
And then 2020 hits, and
the world changes.
The world changed, and we're like, this is not in the plan. Like, there was actually a part in the plan where they talked about like contingency planning. And they're like, you have to look at risks. Like, this is a high impact risk, but a very low probability, or a low probability risk, but a low impact, and how you should deal with each of those. And so one of our steps was supposed to go through that exercise. So the thing you don't ever bother to do is what's the chances of like a world-changing virus
disaster
coming in?
planning.
Yeah, that's like, this is never going to happen. So you should plan for it, but we hadn't quite got to that stage yet.
Page 34, you didn't get there.
Yeah,
right?
we hadn't got there in the first 3 months.
Man.
So the world changed really quick, and I remember I was in Florida with the family at the time. We'd taken the kids down and actually pulled my trailer down there, and we were camping in a park right on the coast in Florida. It was beautiful. But we're watching this, and then the Prime Minister says, okay, it's time for everybody to come home. And I was like, oh, man, what is happening? Because what's going to happen to the company?
That was scary.
Right? That was scary. So we were like, pack up, guys, we got to go. And I remember being on the phone for like half the drive home with Kelly and like, are we laying people? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on? And so it was definitely scary times. There was a key point, probably a month or two into it, where we're like, okay, we're going to be okay because we're being deemed an essential service in most of the work we do, not everything, but we were lucky enough to have some work that could continue. And I looked at that and I said to myself, look, we're a year and a half into this. There's one of two things either this is going to go really sideways and whatever investment I've made is going downhill, or we can just look at it like an opportunity and lean in. And could we be somehow a bigger, better company on the other side? Could we take this as an opportunity to grow? If everybody else is kind of retreating in fear, is there a way that we can figure out how to just push through and be a bigger, better company? We've got this plan, right? We got to change things a little bit, but we've got this plan. What can we do here? And so we leaned in. And that's when, through that period, is when we rebranded the whole company. I remember part of our rebrand was going from white trucks to black trucks. And I also at the time had this idea that I wanted to kind of get rid of our old fleet and bring in a new, modern, reliable fleet that actually represented the brand a lot better. So I signed up with a fleet management company, and we probably had, let's say, 30 vehicles at the time, and 20 or 22 of them needed to be turned over. And it was a December 2020, and I'm like, am I going to sign this thing to lease 22 new vehicles? Like, is
this the right call?
What's going on here? Like, this is astronomical. Like, I've never signed something where I'm committing the company to so much money on something.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is what, like, we got help with our branding, and they were like, you have to go this way. This is what we're doing, right? Like, if you want to achieve the vision that we've talked about together, how do you do this? Well, you got to have black trucks. Figure it out. And it was like, well, you can't paint them, so we got new ones. So we did. So I signed off, and the leasing company was pretty happy. It was a good sale for them.
Yeah, that's a good deal for them. Probably a heck of a lot better price than if you waited one more year to do that.
Well, this is the thing. So I signed that. This is luck, right? Because the plan was we need these vehicles to grow the business. What turned out to be is within a month or two, there was no more orders being accepted. And so all of our vehicles are with Ford, and we ended up receiving over the next year all 22 of our vehicles. After that, you couldn't get one of these things like for love or money. It was just like there was no way.
Industry just exploded.
We had them, and then what was neat about that is our intention was once they come in, we'll get rid of the white trucks, and we'll just order new black ones. We couldn't order new black ones, but we had a double fleet now. We had all these black ones and all these white ones, so it's like, well, guess what we can do with the white ones? We can wrap them black. Right? So all of a sudden we had all the vehicles we needed to allow us to grow. And it was one of those things where you never think the thing that's going to stop your growth is I can't order a truck to go service the customers, right? It just never occurred to me before. But we had put ourselves in a good position, and it worked out. The timing was really good. So, but yeah, the big thing for us was the rebranding, and the other thing was redoing our value set for the company and really leaning into our culture and saying this is the company now, and there's a lot of long-term employees, and we're not shifting this too radically, but we are, right? We're going to just really dial in on what it means to us.
Okay, I'm glad you brought it up because that was on my list because you and I spoke about that, and so why don't you walk us through? You've kind of mentioned the why, but walk us through start to finish of the process to do that. So for someone that even doesn't have core values, maybe they're a newer company or they just haven't done it. Like there's a lot of great legacy companies that are even large that it's like, I don't know. Do we have those? Do we not? But
okay, sure. So we had core values before that. The problem was they were great as long as you had the paper in front of you and you could read right off of them.
Couldn't memorize them.
You couldn't. No, there's no way you could memorize them. And if you can't memorize them, you can't live by them.
Sure.
And they were probably all just idealistic. So we were like, we need to find a new way to do this. So we sat in a room and we got the leadership team together and we said, everybody list names of people in the company that you just stand out. This is someone that you're like, when you're thinking Kraun, this person's coming to mind.
Sure.
And so we had there was 5 or 6, 7 of us maybe, and we wrote all these names down, and now we're getting a big list of names. And then the next step was, okay, so now write a phrase or a word that this is why they're on that list. Like they're on that list for a reason. What about them is the attribute that you want to call out? And so we started to see 3, 4, 5, 6 themes kind of come out of this. And we're like, man, we've got something here. These are the values in the company. We just have to name them now. We've found them. They exist. And we took that and said, now our other values aren't memorable. How do we make this memorable? And because we were doing the branding at the time, we thought, well, in our logo, and I'm not wearing a logo.
It's on the hat.
Yeah.
Hat,
Oh, yeah.
As I'm looking at it, yeah.
So this spark, this is a Kraun hat, this spark, if you actually look at our logo, between the U and the N, there's a little negative space spark, right? And so this is it. So at the time, we're thinking, well, what if we take these values and turn them into an acronym, and so that people could memorize them. And so that's what we came up with. And we went service, potential, authenticity, relationships, and knowledge.
Brilliant.
And they directly came out of the company. And I will say, in hindsight, it is just the best thing we could have done, because they exist. You're not saying, here's the words, now just try and live up to those. Like, these are reality. These are how people are in our company.
You started with
already.
the what do we live now?
Yeah, what do we live now? Just name it, right? And find a way to name it that people actually recognize it and say, that's true. I mean, if your employees are going, that's not true, like, nice try. Integrity, that's great. But, I saw how you treated that customer. I saw how you treated that employee. Then I don't believe that. Well, then it's not a value, and people aren't going to buy into it, right? If the values are going to do anything, it's not as words on a wall. You're not preaching at people. They actually have to believe it and feel it and think it. So when we go through that, we then developed, we have a way of going through and describing each of those values, what that means, and why we think they're relevant and why they're important and what they look like. And so every single new employee that comes to Kraun, every single one, we have an orientation lunch on, in their first week, usually day 1, day 2, day 3, somewhere in there, typically. And they sit down with Kelly and myself and maybe their direct manager. Yep. And it's a chance for them to get to know us in the office a little bit. Because we're in the construction service field, our people are everywhere. We're not doing our work from the office per se, right? Like, we're out doing renovations in someone's house, or we're building a building.
You're pretty spread out.
Yeah, we're spread out everywhere,
you've got
right?
130 plus people, right?
Yeah,
it's not a small group.
It's not a small group, and you can't see everybody all the time. Like, you can go months without seeing some of the employees, even when you're trying to make the rounds, just because we're so dispersed.
Sure.
So we bring them into that orientation lunch and we say, these are the values, and we're going to explain them all to you and go through it. And you can now I've told you the story of how we came up to them, which means they exist in the company, but you're the next person in the company now. You can either contribute and reinforce these values, or you can detract from them. But if you detract from them, just know that a lot of our evaluations and the way we are considering, even the employees themselves are going to look at this and go, if you don't live up to those values, you're not going to make it here, right? It's not going to be the right place.
Yeah.
Now, when we're hiring, we're looking for those values. So 9 times out of 10 or maybe better, you've got them in the people because you've done a good job hiring for that. But yeah, we just remind employees it's important, and we're trying to be broken records on it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that gives a lot of context for those that haven't done something or that want to, or maybe even they want to change. Yep. And it's I love the concept. And we did something very similar years ago of profile the people and what are those qualities and characteristics.
Yep.
And also I think companies need to relook and say, like, have those changed? Is it the same group? Do we still stand for the same things? So.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's important too. You do. And so that's why we did that exercise at the time, because now the ownership had changed. Not entirely, but in a fairly significant way. And so that was
enough
the
that
time,
you had to reevaluate.
Yeah, that was the time where we had said we had to reevaluate. Is what we believe still true about Kraun, and is the proposition the same to the employees and the customers? So that was a good time to do it. So we did that right at the same time we were doing the rebrand, and they've just worked in synergy with each other very well. So
yeah, and I think you knocked it out of the park. I mean, in just even a conversation before, you were saying it. You thought you might have to invest more. I mean, it's a lot of money, right? It's not just the logo and the story behind the brand. It's the trucks. It's everything that comes with it, the merch. But I don't think everyone understands that, and I think you guys have really seen the value in investing in that, because it's more than just the things that are getting the logo on it. It's the whole package. So
I think
I'm also a branding guy, so I selfishly love that and
yeah,
promote
that's
it.
true.
Like,
you love that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you guys did this. Hat, so.
Selfish promotion.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you. Yeah, plug there.
But yeah, no, I think we see a lot of things in modern business where probably a lot of people are going, man, look at that overnight success, or look at, that person just got the talent, or like, this is how it or you watch tech, and tech's like, you get these crazy valuations for companies that they don't make any money, and some of them never do. And it's just money, you're just hoping to land on the right one. Sometimes it looks more like gambling than investing in that space. But for the rest of the world, it takes years to build this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you have to put in the hard work, and you have to invest, and you just have to keep at it. And if you believe in something and it's got a strong foundation, you'll win. The other side of it is you're not big enough to change the market or the economy, right? For the most part. So when you're a small business owner, you are subject to what's going on around you, right? You can do everything right, but if the economy's not in your favor or other factors that are in your control, you can't do anything about that. But eventually the conditions will be right for success if you stick to your guns and you're paying attention to what you should be doing.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, if there's one thing COVID and a lot of other things in the last decade have taught us is that we don't have control and you just have to adapt. And,
yeah, absolutely.
You guys did that really well, so congrats.
Thank you.
I want to talk about not tech, the tech space. I want to talk about tech for you, the I'll call it the leadership group, the mastermind group. Tell me about that. What got you involved, and what are some of the biggest takeaways that you get out of that group? So for those, let's assume no one knows what tech is.
Yeah, so tech is, what's it stand for? I think, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think the executive committee, something like that.
I think you're right. I'm not sure, though, so
we'll
call it that.
Just call it tech.
Yeah.
So it's a group of CEOs, and there's a whole number of groups, and they're led by a local chair. And it's a group of CEOs that get together and just talk business. And you have one day dedicated a month that you're at. Typically, you might be at a shared space, but the way we do it, at least, is someone else hosts at their business every month. Okay. So you go to that business. That's where you do the day. If it's a business where you can tour around and show your members,
production
they get to
facility
see,
or something.
Yeah,
unique.
They get to see the business. And most meetings, you have a speaker that they bring in that talks on some topic, a thought expert or leader on some topic that you get to learn from. And then the rest of the day is learning from your peers, right? And there's no competitors in the group. And they kind of discourage doing too much business between the members because you have to be open for this thing to work, right? Yeah. If you got to be guarded because your customer's in the room or
if you're afraid to talk margin or trade
it's not
secrets,
work, right? So when it's your day to, the way I approached it was once I was in it, when it was my day, it's like I'm gonna put up all the numbers because hopefully everyone in this room can help me, right? And they've probably seen the same struggles or have the same struggles that I have. I found it. Two people had mentioned it to me within the same span of a couple of weeks, but our banker at the time actually mentioned it. Say, have you ever heard of this? And I thought, no, I haven't. So let me go look into it. And I did and met with them. And so I think I've been in for 4 or 5 years now. It's been very helpful. It's all, because it's not competitors, it tends to be different industries. Sure. Right? There's a couple of people that are in the construction industry, but different trade. But I've got some very large companies that are in the group and some smaller companies in the group. And you just get that, hey, how are you dealing with this problem? And when you get to talk to people and they say, you know what, you're not alone. I got that same problem. Even if it's on a different scale, thank you that someone else has this. It's not me.
Empathy, understanding.
It's not just me. Okay,
sure.
So how did you solve it? And oftentimes, someone in the group has solved that problem. And so it might be as simple as, here's the card of the person that helped me solve it. Or it might be, here's how to think through that. Or here's how to approach that. Or, you're the problem, actually. So just fix yourself and you'll fix the problem, right? Sometimes you get that brutal, honest feedback as well. But a lot of good thinking goes on, and it's very thought provoking, and also a lot of good resources. So
that last piece you mentioned is such an amazing takeaway. And I've seen that through. I was part of Entrepreneurs organization and still have a sort of a rogue forum group, but that space to what you just said there of people that can just, I say, call out your bullshit and to absolutely say, hey, you're not showing up the way we know you can, or this is on you and you got to solve this. To me, that's a beautiful space, because I think most entrepreneurs will find is in an organization, maybe not all, but if you're the owner, the boss, it's not always in everyone's wheelhouse to go like, hey, you're doing that again, or it's to call you out. So I think, amongst peers and in that really safe environment, I think that's one of the most beautiful things you can get to go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I got to look at this problem a little bit differently, or look at myself differently.
100%. Yeah. Your employees, no matter how good of a relationship you have with your employees, they're going to be guarded. I mean, that's how it is, right? There's a certain degree of, even if I can be totally honest with you, I'm still going to couch it in a way that it's not just like your friend telling you, right? But in that forum, you don't have to take their advice. They may or may not be right, but they can say it. And what are you going to do about it, right? You're not going to fire them, right? They don't have to worry about that. And so and they want that reciprocity
They're doing it
as well.
with love too, right?
They're doing it with love, and they want it back that way too, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's in the group for the same reason. If you're not in the group for that reason, you're not going to enjoy the group, right? You wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be spending the time and the money to be there. So everybody's looking for that same feedback, whatever you can offer, insights into their business. So, I think anyone in business, any entrepreneur, if you own a business, if you're running a business, find a group, find the right group that fits, your size. And I would even go to far as to say, often we look at just an industry-specific group, which can be incredibly helpful because those are people doing what you're doing. You can learn a lot from them. But being in an industry-agnostic type of group is really powerful learning, because I know that my competitors have the same problems. You get to see it from a different angle, from a different business, right? Oh, you have a manufacturing problem, and this is how you solve that. And I go, how does that apply to contracting? Mm-hmm. How does that apply to the service world? And there's always some sort of corollary there, but you have to figure it out. But it gets your brain thinking from a different perspective. And I think, you can just really solve different problems, or solve problems from a different angle than just meeting with just your industry. So I think both sides are really important.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And like, even if someone's not at the spot where either they don't have the numbers or maybe even the resource, like some of those groups aren't inexpensive to get into. Right. Yeah. It's, I've encouraged people to like, go start your own. I mean, years ago we started this it was the worst name ever, but Niagara Business Group. And but that's what it was. It was like, it started with 10, 12 people.
It's a great idea.
Three of us just said, let's invite some people once a month to have dinner. And we got some speakers in. And like, that was one of the early ones for me to say like, hey, it's peer learning. It's, you develop people you can just say, hey, how do you look at this problem? Or who helped you with that? And, I think there's so many ways to go at that. So.
And I think when you're often, not always, but often when you're running a business, there's a temptation to be like, I'll figure it out. I'm going to figure it all myself. And you probably can, if you've got the right makeup and you're there for the right reasons, but why would you want to?
It's probably an easier way.
It's probably an easier way. Like, it is going to take you a long time,
too.
and a cheaper way. You're going to make a lot of mistakes that you may have been able to avoid. And you could have moved yourself ahead a lot quicker with a lot less stress, right?
Yeah. I think we laugh because we both made a lot of those mistakes trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of times you go, I heard this, or I read it, or I watched it, like this is going to work. And then you actually don't know how to apply it very well all the time. And so you need that outside viewpoint. So I think it's, when someone showed it to me, I'm a learner, as I told you, I love learning and I love hearing new perspectives and talking to new people, and and from whatever angle that comes from, I can appreciate the academic viewpoint, and I can appreciate the just roll up our sleeves and fight through it. But, learning from other people is just so important. I think if you're trying to go it alone, then you probably only have yourself to blame when problems happen because you didn't ask for any other help, right?
Yeah.
So
speaking of learning, like, the last 18 months, I mean, AI has started to really, I'll say rapidly change the world. Yep. Not every way. Yeah. And I mean, your industry may be one that is not as impacted as quickly. I mean, until AI can go and, put the receptacle in and change that and talk to the customer. I mean, let's not say it's that far away, but how are you looking at AI as a business to add value to what you're already doing?
Okay. So I've thought about AI for quite some time. A number of years ago,
2 years since OpenAI came out.
So 2 years since ChatGPT came out. Okay. But even before that, I'd had a book that I was reading. I forget the name of the book right now, but it was basically about rethinking AI. And I picked up this book because some influencer that I followed had said, they're reading this book right now. And so, okay, let me read this book. And it was talking about AI before we'd ever heard of ChatGPT, or at least before I had ever heard of it, before it came out. As soon as ChatGPT came out, I started using it. And I've used it ever since. And for two reasons. One, I find it very useful for certain things. But two, as a leader in a company, you better be looking at the future and how things are. I mean, that's your role. A huge part of your role is you've got to get ahead for the rest of the staff to know what's coming and to know how to integrate that in the company and keep the company current with the times. And AI, as far as I can tell, is just rapidly evolving. And it's not just the ChatGPTs of the world, although that's the poster child right now. But there's a lot of other aspects to AI, like machine learning and stuff, and different ways to deploy it where it's maybe not as flashy, but it can be really powerful in a business. So I'm doing my best to try and pay attention to that. I've gone to seminars and like I said, read books on it, and then just get your hands dirty with it. Just mess around and figure it out, and trying to think, how does this help? So in our industry, it's helping to change a bunch of stuff in our office, and it will rapidly. I mean, it's not overhauling it. I look at it, I really take the view of it's going to give us superpowers, right? Rather than there's two views you can take on it right now. Well, it's going to get rid of jobs, or it's going to enhance jobs.
Make jobs easier, better, more efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, we're a growth-minded company. We're a potential company, and AI to me represents potential, right? How are we going to do our jobs better the next time? How are we going to make better decisions? How are we going to be more professional? How are we going to be more efficient? So that's the aspect I'm looking at it. As far as, when's it going to hit the trades? I mean, if you watch some of the robotics that are out there right now,
it's impressive.
Some of those robots, and there's a few, very big investments. Tesla's one, but others that are investing in these robots that are becoming pretty impressive what they can do. And I don't think it's going to be that far down the road that we're figuring out a way to use them in the business or in everyday life. What's amazing to me, so ChatGPT, if you're using it, you've almost become accustomed to it already, I think. Right? Now it's a lot of, like, for me, it's just another tool I use. Yeah. Right? At first it was like, how does this thing do what it's doing, right? Like, this is incredible. This is wild. But now it's like, it's normal.
Shock
it's part
is
of life
over.
now. Yeah, the shock's over, and it's just part of life now, right? And so, maybe the robots are next. I don't know. But
I still find people, I was sitting with our controller, it was a few weeks back, and it was a lease document, being recreated from an old one. I'm like, hang on, let's stop and just open ChatGPT right now. And it was, again, not to say that she was the one, but I think a lot of people still don't go there. And I'm often ranting to, anyone, whether it's talking to my family or talking to the team, be like, go there first. Like, just try. Yeah. Like, take the 2 seconds and just be curious about it. Because I think there's still a lot of people that are like, that's great, or that's not for me. I don't need that. Like, we just need to think as a society, everyone just play in a little bit more. Get comfortable. It's fun. There's so many great things. So
it's a fun tool, and it can do a lot, and it can really augment. Like, for me, the things that ChatGPT itself does, and I've played it with a couple of the different competing products as well. But what the biggest things that it does to me is, one, it's great for ideation. So if you're looking for a new idea on something that you don't know a lot about, you used to have to do a lot of research and read this and that and put it all together, and you can still do that, but you can go to it and say, I'm trying to solve this, teach me about this. And it's going to give you a lot of information quickly. Now, is it the foremost expert on any of these things? No, you should probably, if it's a really important thing, you got to be careful, and you've got to get the expertise. But from that ideation point of view, just to figure out where should I go next, or what should I do next, or give me an idea, or maybe I'm stuck on how to solve this problem. How are other people solving this problem? It's going to lead you, down that path. So I love that. It it also is really good at straightening out your thoughts, or at least mine, when my mind is a little muddled, right? If I've written something or I want to say something, I can't quite get it right, but I got the concepts. It's like, get this, put it in there. It comes back with something that I'm like, okay, that's too computery, right? Or too AI-y, right?
Change the tone.
But 80% of the work from going from first draft to say fourth draft is done now, right?
Yeah.
It straightened out a lot of stuff really quickly, and now I can take that back and just tweak it and go from there. And so I find that's been really helpful. And for the most part, I think now what we're seeing, they're talking a lot about the agent part now, right? This is the year where they're going to start doing agents, and they've actually just came out this week with the new agent capability, and it's pretty limited right now, but if you look at their track record, it won't be limited for very long. And now it can start doing things that you ask it to do. And so now, as to me, the efficiency again, hopefully the accuracy comes with it too, is going to be really good for, I think, knowledge roles, office roles, that type of stuff. So
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think a lot of people look back at this time in history and say like that changed the world.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, more so than a lot of other things in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have enough time. I'm going to wrap up with a couple more questions.
Sure.
How would you describe yourself as a leader, the qualities that are most important to you as you show up?
So I try and be brave. Okay, so when I'm looking out for the company, I'm trying to look out, say brave or optimistic, right? I'm an optimistic person by my nature, but I work hard at being optimistic when you want to get afraid or you want to be pessimistic about something. And I think that if I can lead with optimism, and not blind optimism, but if I can lead with, look, here's how we're going to solve this, and we're going to figure this out. I think that gives people a lot of confidence in the company and in the manager. Yeah. They're like, okay, we're going to get through this. And we all look to leaders, whatever we're in, we look to leaders to lead us through things, right? And so I do try and lead with optimism. I will be realistic when it's needed. Well, I think all the time, but I will err on the side of optimism, and then we're going to figure it out. People, especially in our business, every business leader says people matter, right? Our business is people. So at Kraun, we do electrical work. We don't sell a product. We don't make a product. I can't import our product. Like, we have to go out to your house and do that. So I put a lot of emphasis on people, and I like people. I like talking to people. I like learning about people. And so it's a people-first business. So I really try and lead around that angle. People are people, just like us, and they have to be happy. They have to be excited to come to work. They have to be motivated to come to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've got to like what they're doing. So for me, I would say my biggest word over the last number of years, and probably for most of my life, has been the word potential. So at Kraun, we actually have, our tagline is powering potential,
Love that.
which is, that's a bit of I love it because a bit of a play on the potential is like another word for voltage, and we're powering sites, actually powering them, right? But powering potential is like, what's our potential as humans? What can we achieve, right? Or as workers, as employees, what can we achieve? I very much think of myself as an employee at Kraun. And I very much, and so I take my role as an employee at Kraun very seriously, and I go, what's my potential, and what is it that I should be doing for the company that's going to lead the company forward? Because once you have one employee, after that, you feel a huge obligation to keep providing, right? Like, I've got to make sure that there's work there because people are counting on coming to work every day.
People have bills, mortgages, families.
Absolutely. Beyond that, when you cover that stuff, people also have aspirations. And so they want to work for a place where they can really achieve that and where they can achieve their highest potential. And so we try and offer that. I try and we do our best with the resources and the opportunities we have to make sure that everybody that's at Kraun is going to achieve their potential in whatever role that is. So often that's upward mobility. Someone wants to try a new role, try management, but very often it's not. Very often it's just, actually, I wouldn't mind working on this other type of project and learning another aspect to my trade that I haven't learned. Or actually really enjoy working with people. Can I go on the residential side of the business? Or I really want to work on more complex electrical systems. Okay, we're going to send you to a place that's maybe not a cookie cutter type of building. So we try and lead with that. I try and look for people's potential. I work hard at not being. I look back and go, man, I had to figure it out and I had to learn stuff, and people were gracious with me. I need to make sure I'm that way as well.
Yeah.
I've latched onto a saying, and I don't know where I heard it, but it's becoming more and more resonant with me, is put the ladder back down. And to me, that's about, okay, Aaron, you're getting to a point in your career where you really need to be looking at, you've had this awesome privilege to lead. How do you help the people under you, climb that ladder too, right? And get to their potential,
so
that,
cool.
that next spot. So I try and lead around those things. I think is the biggest thing. Authenticity, just having integrity. If I say I'm going to do something, I want to do it. Try not to forget. I can be a little forgetful at times, but just trying to follow through on what I said I'm going to do and lead the ship from that direction. So
awesome, man! It's really, really cool. I got a ton from this. The last question, because I've got a bunch more, but if everything goes to plan of what you and Kelly and the leadership team have put in place, take me 10 years ahead and paint that picture of where are you at and what's happened.
So that's going to depend on whether I felt I've met my potential or not. So if we're growing right now, okay? And there's no question that we're growing, and we're growing intentionally. We're going to continue to grow. The next 10 years, we have mapped out a rough journey of growth and how we want to grow. The reason we're growing is about that potential, right? It's not for the money or the prestige or anything else. I think what we're offering people like both employees and customers, so we're going to continue to grow that and offer it to more places. Probably looks like growing more geography. So we serve Niagara, Hamilton, Burlington. We have a number of projects in Kitchener-Waterloo right now. We've done some work. Right now we're working within probably a 2-hour radius of Niagara. But we want to expand that, because I'm looking at it going, well, if the people in the next city or town are, kind of like the people here, then they're probably going to like what we do and what we have to offer. So we're going to continue to grow that. So how big we'll grow it, that'll depend on when we decide, okay, maybe we're tapped out. But Kraun itself, we are trying to steward the company in a healthy way as well. So when inevitably it's time for me to move on from the company, I want it to be really healthy for whatever's next. Whoever's there to take it over next I didn't start the company, right? And as I told you before, I bought in and I thought I can take this to something, and someday someone else hopefully takes it over from there and continues to grow that. So how big or how far, I don't know, but we'll see. So we're definitely growing though.
That's exciting, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, again, so many lessons, great experience. Your story's awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. This is great.
It was a blast.
We're going to have to come back. And
we'll do it again. Yeah. Episode 2. I want to put a plug too, just because the connection we have on Niagara College. And I mean, I attribute, the starting point in my career in that co-op experience. And I think whether it's Niagara or anyone, I mean, to me, any sort of post-secondary education, when you can practice that in the field, no different than your Athabasca experience, right? It's like taking that thing and putting it into play. To me, that's incredible. And I'm indebted to the college and lots of other experiences for that. So
no, absolutely. Niagara's been it's a great resource in the community. And I just think they've been really good, and they do the trade school now as well. I think it's fairly small, but it's growing. And so I love the practical parts of college. People go there and they can learn a really useful job really quickly. And I went to university as well, but Niagara College just offers a lot of practical stuff. So I'm very thankful for my time there.
That co-op piece I always said is like, you can go and learn, and you might learn, something you love and you want to do, or maybe something you don't want to do, but at least you learned it. It was like 4 months, not 4 years of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to continuing to watch your journey and stay connected.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, take care.
You too.